All praise, glory, and honor is most certainly due to the Most High, the patriarchs Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Peace to you in the name of His Son. Count it truly a blessing each and every time that I can come before you to preach the word of God, and never do I count it as a light thing to do so. All right, brothers and sisters. I'm not gonna keep you long. I want to get right into today's topic. I'm coming on late this evening, and it simply is dealing with the persecution that you can face, or will face, I should say, as a believer. You know, one of the things that we expect it's really based on just not understanding. When you hear the truth of His word, it's a beautiful thing, and you get excited, and then you take it to people, and you find that you are rejected. You're shocked, not realizing that the one you claim to be following, he was rejected. Okay, now, you know, people talk about Jesus or the Messiah, the Christ, but as Paul said, that's another Jesus. Okay, that's the one they've concocted in the vain imagination of their mind. When you are a true believer in this word and you start trying to live it out, you find that you are rejected from the world. Let's go to John the 17th chapter. John the 17th chapter. And we're gonna pick it up in John the 17th chapter. And I'm gonna pick it up at verse 14. He says, I'm gonna pick it up at verse 6. He says, I have manifested thy name unto the men which thou gavest me out of the world. Thine they were, and thou gavest them me. They have kept thy word. Okay. So now when you hear that word, that's something in you that it brings joy to you. You're happy because you know the truth. The truth, the Bible says, to set you free, but the truth will also bring something else. This is John 17 and verse 14. He says, I have given them thy word. He's praying to the Father. He said, I'm giving them the word that you gave me. I have given them thy word, and the world hath hated them, because they are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. Okay, so what causes you to be hated? It's the word. When you try to live this word as it is written, it will cause you to be hated, brothers and sisters. Let's go to 2 Timothy, the third chapter. Okay, because he said this is not just some or perhaps may happen. This is going to happen if you are a believer. This is 2 Timothy, the 3rd chapter. And I'm going to pick it up at verse 10, because Paul here, the Apostle Paul, in his epistle to Timothy, the second epistle, he's telling him this. He's telling them what believers can expect. He says in verse 10, but thou hast fully known my doctrine. That's teaching, manner of life, purpose, faith, long-suffering, charity, which is love, and patience. Then he says something else, persecutions, afflictions, which came unto me at Antioch, at Iconium, at Lystra. See, one thing about Paul was persecuting the church, wreaking havoc on the church. But on that road to Damascus, he was converted. And then what happened? He was persecuted. So it says, persecutions, afflictions, which came unto me at Antioch, at Iconium, at Lystra. What persecutions I endured, but out of them all, the Lord delivered me. And he says something else. He said, yea, and all that will live godly in Christ Jesus shall suffer persecution. See, again, not some, not a few, not most, all. Okay, when you read about him, what happened to him? He was persecuted severely. Okay, let's go to let's see, 2 Corinthians, the 11th chapter. 2 Corinthians, the 11th chapter, and it's just to show you what happened to him once he was one. They laid their garments at his feet when they were stoning Stephen in Acts the 7th chapter. But listen to what happened to him after he believed in the Messiah. He says in this is 2 Corinthians 11 and verse 24. He says, of the Jews 5 times received I 40 stripes, save one, or except one. Thrice was I beaten with rods, once was I stoned, thrice I suffered shipwreck, a night and a day I have been in the deep, and journeyings often, and perils of waters, and perils of robbers, and perils by mine own countrymen, and perils, because they were the ones oftentimes stirring up the people to attack Paul, and perils by the heathen, and perils in the city, and perils in the wilderness, and perils in the sea, and perils among false brethren, and weariness, and painfulness, and watchings often, and hunger and thirst, and fastings often, and cold and nakedness. Then he says something, beside those things that are without and outside, that which cometh upon me, the care of all the churches. So in addition to all that, he was over these congregations. Okay, but now let's go to John, the 1st chapter, because it should be understood that it should be, if you think about it logically, they hated him. So, I mean, let's see how they felt about the Messiah. This is John 1 and verse 1. It says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. So now the Word, we understand, is none other than the Messiah. Because it says in verse 14, and the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. That's why it's called Emmanuel. And we beheld his glory, the glory as the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. Okay? But now how did they feel about him? Verse 5, it said, and the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. He was the light of the world. So he told you, he said, I am the light of the world. He's lighting your path to salvation. That's what he's doing. But they rejected him. Like he says in John, the 3rd chapter, and this is condemnation, that light is coming into the world, and men love darkness rather than light, because their deeds were evil. See, one thing he's bringing is a standard of righteousness, a standard of morality, and we don't naturally want to do that. So that's where the hatred comes in. But he says in verse 9, that was the true light, which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made by him. So he's the one that actually created the heavens and the earth. The Father did it through his Son. It tells you that here in John 1, Hebrews 1, Colossians 1. Then he says, he came unto his own, and his own. So he said he was in the world, and the world was, in verse 10, he was in the world, and the world was made by him, and the world knew him not. He came unto his own, and his own received him not. Let's go to Matthew. So he came unto his own. He was the tribe of Judah. They rejected him. Matthew, the 10th chapter. So if they're rejecting him, even his own brethren rejected him. You read that in John, the 8th chapter. So now, if he is being rejected, you and I should certainly expect to be rejected by the world. This is Matthew, the 10th chapter, and verse 24. Matthew 10 and verse 24. Peace to you, brother. It said, in verse 24, the disciple is not above his master, nor the servant above his Lord. So if you follow him and the world hated him, think about it. They nailed him to a tree. Clearly, that's hatred. So it says, the disciple is not above his master, nor the servant above his Lord. It is enough for the disciple that he be as his master, and the servant as his Lord. If they have called the master of the house Beelzebub, how much more shall they call them of his household? Okay, so they called him, they told him, now we know that thou hast the devil. They called him Beelzebub, a heathen deity, Lord of the flies. So if they think that about him, they certainly won't love us. He said, I've given them thy word, and the world hath hated them. There's also that word that sanctifies you from the rest of the world. And it is your actions are a testimony to what can be, how you can live. And that's why people hate you. It's like when you go in a classroom and nobody did the homework except one student. And then the teacher up there, you say, Miss, whoever the teacher is, Miss Williams, here's my homework. All those kids mad at you. Why are they mad at you? If they had done their homework, they wouldn't be mad at you. But they mad at you because you putting them on blast by your actions. You didn't do that to them. You doing what you're supposed to do. So it is with this word. When you live, of course, you ain't even got to say anything. But when you say, no, I'm not keeping Sunday worship. I'm not eating pork. I'm not fornicating. I'm not committing adultery. I'm not doing the things I used to do. People have a problem with that because they want to live in a way in which it could all be blurry. It could all be, well, nobody knows, what God wants. No, it's clear what the Most High wants. It's in His word. Oh, well, you can't judge. No, that's not what the Bible's saying. The Bible says it speaks against unrighteous judgment. It tells you a spiritual man judges all matters. You judge according to what? You know what's right and wrong according to what thus said the Lord. But see, people don't want to bring their bodies into subjection. So that's why they have a problem with you when you try to serve them. That's why they come up with things. You can't do all them laws. Why you doing every other thing in honor of these pagan deities? Okay. Let's pick it up at verse. Let's pick it up at verse 34. Because one thing he didn't do, you think, oh, I got the Most High, I got peace now. Hey, Jesus, the Messiah, he's telling he didn't come to bring peace. This is verse 34. He says, think not that I'm come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. See, he said, I came to bring division. Like he said, I have given them thy word, and the world that hath hated them. Sanctify them through thy truth. Thy word is truth. His commandments are the truth. It tells you in Psalms 119th division. So that's the truth. And when you live according to that, that's going to separate you to some degree from people, from the world. So it said, he says, think not that I'm come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. Then he says, verse 35, because this division can be amongst even those who are closest. He said, for I'm come to set a man at variance against his father, and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. Any believer knows this. True believers, you believing, your mama got a problem with it. You believing, your husband got a problem with it. Your wife got a problem with it. Your sister, your brother, your cousin, your best friend, your co-workers, your boss. The world, people have a problem with you. I have given them my word, and the world hath hated them. So he said, if I'm come to set a man at variance or at odds against his father, and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and a man's foes or enemies shall be they of his own household. But we should understand that even though these people have a problem with you, the question is, who do you want to please, them or the Most High? So it says, he that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. You can't love them more than you love the Messiah. Then he said, and he that taketh not his cross and followeth after me is not worthy of me. So he said, take up your cross and follow him. Understand what a cross is. He was going to death. You got to be obedient unto him, even unto death. He that findeth his life shall lose it. And he that loseth his life for my sake shall find it. So that's the cost, brothers and sisters, of discipleship. And with that, I want to remind you, we're at the Household of Faith, meet every Sabbath at 5925 West 25th Avenue in Gary, Indiana at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. We live stream right here on the Israel Teach YouTube channel, as well as at www.israelteach.org. If you've been edified through the ministry, you can leave a donation on our website, www.israelteach.org. 100% of the proceeds go to the work of the ministry. There are also books available. Into Egypt Again with Ships, The Pagan Origins of Christian Holidays, Hair Like Wool, Feet Like Burned Brass, Killing Black Innocents, For Then Shall Be Great Tribulation, and In Defense of Biblical Polygyny. And with that, brothers and sisters, so it's my prayer that you were edified.